morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. My name is Callie, and this is another weekend of clarinets, cats, and mango smoothie. All right, you guys can't see this right now, but Luke is laying right here on the desk with me. Let me see if I can. Oh, he's such a good kitty. He's just supervising today. All right, in today's video, I am going to share a few books that I have on my summer reading list. And 5 of the books are things that I have already read, that I absolutely love, and that I'm just kind of wanting to reread again to get some ideas and some inspiration for going back to in-person teaching and performing. And the other 5 books are actually things that have been recommended to me by friends, and I just haven't gotten around to reading them yet, and so I thought I could hold myself accountable by sharing my list with you guys. Now, before we do that, I just want to thank all my patrons for supporting my channel and keeping these videos going. If you like what I'm doing, feel free to go check out my Patreon page and become a patron for as little as $3 a month. In addition to that, I'm also teaching lessons over the summer. If you are looking for a teacher for remote lessons, be sure to send me a message. All right, so I am going to start with the 5 books that I have already read and that I intend to read again. And I hope you guys will consider checking them out as well, because they've been a source of great inspiration to me. So the first one is one of my favorites, and I actually didn't read this book until last year, early 2020, and that is Art and Fear. And it's a really easy read. It's a pretty short book, and for anybody who is looking into making their own content, anybody who is in any sort of creative industry, whether it's music, art, photography, whatever, it is, I think, a really great book to kind of help stay motivated and stay on track and kind of get over any sort of fears when it comes to sharing your artwork. And I think, I know this is like very, very watered down, but the main thing that I got out of this book was no one cares as much about your art as you do, so you might as well just keep making art and keep making it better over time. And that's a really down-to-earth way to kind of think about creating content and sharing art. And it really kind of gave me the motivation I needed to kind of just dig in and work on my YouTube channel. And so highly recommend this book for anybody who is in the arts field. The next book, I actually have it on my Kindle. So I actually have my second recommendation on my Kindle app on my iPad, and it's called Peak: The Secrets from the New Science of Expertise by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. And I found that book absolutely fascinating. Reading through it and just learning about how people become really good at what they do. And the most fascinating part of it, actually, to me, was when they studied London taxi cab drivers, and how that's a job that actually requires not just knowing the city, but also, to be good at it, you have to constantly be getting better at knowing the city. It's that extra edge of wanting to get better at it, I think, that makes them really good at what they do. So, book I highly recommend. I'm gonna give it another read because it was a while ago that I read it, but I think that it's great for anybody interested in that sort of thing, which actually brings me to my next book. Actually, it's 2 books kind of in one, but I'm putting this as my next book. And one is, it's The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, and The Little Book of Talent. And so they kind of go hand in hand. And I read this stuff years and years ago, so I'm going to give it another read. But basically, the whole premise to this book, or at least what I get out of it, is that talent is like this weird magical thing that popular culture is like, oh, they're so talented, I could never do that. But the reality is that anybody who is any good at anything has actually put in a lot of work to become good at that. And so it's very similar to Peak, in that it kind of dives into the nitty-gritty of why people are good at what they do. And so it's also a very easy read, a really quick read, and you could also get the Little Book of Talent if you're a teacher. One of the schools I teach at, which is where I borrowed this book from, is at York High School, and one of the teachers there, like, he uses that book in his teaching a lot, and it's great because we both are kind of, you know, on the same page with this stuff, and we kind of preach the same sort of messages about practicing and getting good at musical instruments. So anybody who's a teacher, anybody who's a musician, or basically in any field you want to be talented at, great set of books to read. The next book that I also haven't read in a long time that I'm going to reread is The Inner Game of Tennis, and this by Timothy Galloway. And this book also has a series of books written after it, like Inner Game of Music, Inner Game of anything you could think of. But this was the first of its kind, and basically it kind of goes through just kind of what happens mentally when playing tennis, and what sets apart, you know, the good players from the great players. And man, it's been a while since I've read this, but what I initially got out of it many years ago was that trying too hard to do a thing is actually going to be worse, is actually going to make you worse at the thing. And so, I mean, one of my big things in teaching is to take big natural breaths, try not to think too hard about what you're doing, be mindful, but at the end of the day, you have to have this very focused, very relaxed focus when performing. And so that's a really great book to read, to just kind of reflect on the art of performance, basically. All right, and so the fifth book that I'm going to recommend, and I'm also going to give another read, is The War of Art. And I know it's kind of a cheesy title and everything, but I just really love this book. It's by Stephen Pressfield, and it's a really good book to read if you're seeking motivation to practice, if you're looking for motivation to practice any kind of art, even if it's writing, even whatever sort of field you're in. Or it doesn't even have to be art. It could be anything you really care about doing that that you have resistance against making headway in. And he talks a lot about our internal resistance against wanting to do the things that we care about, and will set up our own barriers to prevent ourselves from doing these things. And it's kind of the cycle of misery, because we think we can't do the thing that we want to do, but it's just a lot of times stuff that we make up in our own heads. So it's very much a reflection on that kind of struggle and that kind of process that creatives go through in order to create work. So I highly recommend that if you're looking for motivation, and it's also a very easy read. It's pretty quick, and it's a great book to kind of help you get over your own internal resistance. All right, so the next set of books that I am going to list off here, I really don't know a whole lot about, but they've been recommended to me, and so I'm going to give them a shot because they're very similar to things that I have already read, and I really want to cross these guys off my list and learn a few things. So the first book is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and I think this is probably along the same lines as like the Talent Code and Peak and those kinds of things. Just a book about being good at whatever your thing is that you want to be good at. So I'm going to give that a read because I love to be inspired by such things. Another one was actually given to me. It's called Strings Attached by Melanie Kopinski and Joanne Littman. I know I butchered their names, but this was given to me by a number of years ago when I was in the civic orchestra, and one of the donors of the orchestra actually reached out to one member of every section in the orchestra and said she wanted to take lessons with all of us, basically, and learn a little bit about every instrument in the orchestra. So she had her lessons with me. She got a clarinet, and I taught her about the instrument and reeds, and she made a sound, and she learned a song, and I think it was Happy Birthday. I can't remember now at this point. And it was just the most wonderful experience. And so this, at the end of that, we all got together, and she gave us this book, Strings Attached, One Tough Teacher and the Gift of Great Expectations. And I feel like I need some inspiration for teaching, and I think right now is going to be a great time to read this. So the next book I'm going to read was recommended by a teacher friend of mine, and she teaches young teenagers. She works in the public school system, and she teaches middle school, and it's called The Teenage Brain. And I think it would be very fascinating to read about this. A neuroscientist's survival guide to raising adolescents and young adults. And I think it would just be great for me to have a little bit of knowledge in, considering that 80% of my studio is in high school. So I'm going to give that a read per the recommendation of one of my teacher friends. Then the last two books I want to read were recommended by a couple of adult students of mine. And the one was, he was just talking about, books that he's going to reread because he rereads them every couple of years. And the one it's called Mistakes Were Made, But Not By Me. Why We Justify Foolish Beliefs, Bad Decisions, and Hurtful Acts by Carol Tarvis and Elliot Arnson. There we go. And I think that all pretty much explains what the book's about, and I think it would be fascinating. And he didn't really tell me I should read it. He was just talking about it in passing, and I'm like, okay, if this is good enough for him to talk about reading every so often, I need to give it a read. So I bought it, and here it is in my library, ready to be read. All right, and the last book I'm going to read is, it was actually recommended by another adult student of mine, and I was talking about some of my favorite books, like The Inner Game of Tennis and The Talent Code, and he was like, if you're interested in that, you should read Flow, and I am not even going to pronounce this author's name, but I will put it up here on the screen for you to check it out. And I think that explanation pretty much sums up the reason why I want to read it. Flow, the Psychology of Optimal Experience. So I am very excited to get nerdy and read this book as well. So, guys, I am always looking for recommendations of books to read along these lines. Teaching, inspiration, psychology, anything like that. Please share with me anything you recommend in the comments below, and I will add them to my list. And guys, let me know if you've read any of these, what you think about them. I've definitely not given a very thorough explanation of these, and so I would definitely be interested in having you guys share your thoughts as well in the comments below. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this episode of Clarinets, Cats, and Coffee. And in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. Have a good rest of your week. And as always, happy practicing.